Call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody, to the Lane County Budget Committee meeting Thursday, May 18th, 2023. We have a full budget committee roster today. Welcome back, Mr. Pryor. Thanks all for being here today. We're going to move straight into public comment. And I'm told there were a couple of comments, public folks waiting online, or nobody online? Okay, we might wait just a minute and see if there's anybody in the audience wishing to make public comment. Seeing none? Okay. It's a busy night. All right, well, let's move on. Maybe we can circle back, given that it's only 5:32 and we're being very efficient with our time so far. So following public comment, we were going to move into committee business. It looks like we have two sets of minutes to review and approve. First is the May 9th, 2023 meeting minutes. I assume everybody's had a moment to look at that, and I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the minutes, as said.
Moved and seconded. Are there any comments before we vote? Seeing none, so all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? And I will abstain since I was not at that meeting. Let's see, the meeting minutes for May 11th, 2023 are next. I'd entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of May 11th.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any comments to the matter? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed or abstentions? Seeing none, okay. Well, moving right through this. Has anybody shown up on the online for public comment? None, okay. Is Commissioner Senega online? Thank you. Sorry, I should have asked that before. Then the next agenda item is the budget process recap. I'd look to staff for that.
Chair and members of the committee, this is really just an opportunity to reflect on the process over the last couple of weeks, and if there are any comments or questions that you have after all of that, you can discuss that, or you can move on to the next item.
Are there any comments? Seems like a rather smooth process to me.
As the chair.
No. All right, well, I will just say, I feel like the staff have done a really excellent job at putting all of this together. I can appreciate how much work this is, how long it takes to actually pull all of this information together, and then the time spent not only during the day, but in evenings and afternoons, helping us understand the process and this very large budget. And so I just want to say thank you for your time and your patience and your energy around this. I think it went very smoothly from my perspective. Thank you to all of the department heads who are here tonight and have been with us most of the days that we've been looking at this. I appreciate your work and your time and your energy and your service to this community, so thank you. Okay. Seeing none, okay, we're moving along. Okay, so now budget committee discussion and deliberation. So we received some materials in front of us in an email earlier today regarding a couple of, a total of 4 now, options for this committee to review and discuss. So as I'm reading these deliberation guidelines, and forgive me, this is the first time I've done this process, I've completed this process before, so please, staff, help me out if that's needed. it looks like we need, we can go through these item by item, and we need at least 4 votes to move each item along to discussion on the issue. Then we can have that discussion, and then we would need at least 6 votes to include the item in the approved budget. So we'll just go down the list. Yes, Commissioner?
Chair, I just want to make sure that we also talk about the Health and Human Services item as well.
Oh, yeah.
I'll just add that it's later on the list.
Oh,
Yeah,
is it?
Yeah,
Okay,
so first
thank you.
addressing these 4 that have been,
So, okay, great, thank you, Commissioner. So let's go ahead and just start at the top of the list. Looks like Commissioner Lovall submitted this particular item, an allocation of $200,000 from general fund reserves for 2 rehabs on foreclosed properties suitable for mental health, drug, low barrier, first level treatment. I think you all see that. Do I have 4 votes to move that forward? 3, I'm seeing 5 at this point, okay. So we can move it on, and I'm sorry, I need to remember about Commissioner Seneca.
and actually, could we maybe try and get Metro TV's attention to, Commissioner Seneca cannot hear. We think that the meeting might be muted on our end. So just seeing if they can help
I
us
see him
fix
scrambling
that.
up there.
Okay.
Should we pause for a moment?
If we're all quiet, he won't know whether he can hear us yet.
No.
That's true.
Play some good hold music or something.
Does anybody have, any,
You know the word, Commissioner, come on.
anybody have any jokes about Commissioner Seneca?
Can we hear him? Jason, can you hear Commissioner Seneca? Did you see the motion? Is that what you said?
I see his, he's looking down right now. Hey. He's yeah, gave me the victory sign, which means he's on his way.
No, he's talking to him
No,
on the
he's
phone.
on cell phone.
He's on the phone with him.
Yeah.
He's on the phone. with him. Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
Charades?
Yeah,
2? He said 2.
yeah. Give me 2
Sounds
hours, I'll
like.
be done.
2 minutes.
Maybe it's 2 minutes.
Is this a situation where we might want to take a
We
break?
could just take a break for a minute if you want.
Yeah, I'm getting a thumbs up to take a break. Yes, okay. Let's recess, and then we'll come back. Yes, thank you. Here we are. Here we are. Okay, we're coming back into session. Thanks, everybody, for your patience as we deal with some technical difficulties. Okay, so I'm told that we do have, no, we do not. Okay, we're going, okay. So where we left off before the break is we had 4 votes to move forward. Commissioner Laval's the $200,000 request from the general fund. So now we move into discussion on issues brought to the table. So this is a roundtable discussion and/or comments and a call for a motion on the item. So I maybe look to Commissioner Laval to speak to the, sorry?
If I could.
Yeah.
It may be helpful for us to go through and get 4 votes on all of them so we can kind of do some balancing.
Oh, I
Some of
see.
them may drop off the table.
That's a good idea. Looks like you've done this before.
It is your meeting. Please move forward.
Let's go with that. I'm okay with that. Okay, so
Remind him who has the gavel, though.
Yes.
I'm okay. I'm all about efficiency. I'm all about efficiency. Okay, so we were gonna, let's go to item number 2, which is also a request from Commissioner Laval. Allocate $117,000 and change from the general fund reserves to rejoin the Association of Oregon and California Counties, AOCC, which consists of Lane County share of due at 15%. And then there's also plus litigation contribution on some, it looks like some active litigation occurring. So do we have 4 votes to move forward? 1, 2, 3, 4. I see 4. Okay.
Commissioner Seneca voting in on this?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
He has lost sound again, unfortunately. Still, his computer's not showing that it's muted. Oh, now he can hear again.
He can hear.
Give it a shot.
Okay. We need to make sure, I need to make sure he's given the opportunity to vote. So why can't we see him on the? He's on phone. Understood. Okay.
You can ask him for a verbal response.
Are we able
Yeah.
to hear him, though? Jason, are you?
Can we hear him? Can Jason hear him?
Like being in Uganda where the guy interpreting for you is taking 17 minutes to tell a 3-word sentence.
Jason, are you able to hear him? No. Okay, Commissioner Seneca,
Call him and
or perhaps he can put his vote in the chat? Is that a possibility? Or is he calling in, so he probably can't access the chat? Okay. I don't, maybe it is better that we just call?
see if he answers, yeah, unless I've done this before, so. Oh.
It's already on.
He's already on the phone. Commissioner Seneca, I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Then you are in the meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. We're going to, I did not catch your vote on item number 2, the Association of Oregon and California Counties, AOCC item. Can you let me know what your vote is on that?
That would be a yes.
Thank you. So we have 5 there as well, I believe. Okay, item number 3 was Commissioner Senega's item, River Road Community Organization and Santa Clara Community Organization, funding to provide information to county households outside of the city limits. That's a $15,947 request. Can I, are there 4 votes to move that forward? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, I see. And Commissioner Seneca, your vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. And then the final request is from Commissioner Farr, request for $1,965 from the general fund reserve, combined with $1,965 in existing expenditure authority in the North Eugene Commissioner account for a total of $3,930 for Lane Consumer Council. Do we have 4 votes? 2, 3, 4?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Okay, we're moving all of them forward to the second round, discussion on issues brought to the table. So now, let's move back up to item number 1, which is the $200,000 from Commissioner Laval. So I will turn to Commissioner Laval and see if he wants to speak to the matter.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you, Chair. This proposal is a proposal to where, in my mind, we can take a modular approach to a goal that the county has put forward on the Stabilization Center. This gives peer mentor support to organizations that are at the street level, performing duties that we are projected to perform in the stabilization model. And to me, if we could take a foreclosed house that's on the inventory of some of our foreclosed property, use one in Springfield, one in Eugene, we can actually move the needle on what we have estimated as almost 24 beds or 24 patients that we could see in this sector, and do like a modular approach to what we really want to do in the future. What my experience is in losing my son, which is almost a year ago next month, to suicide in this sector of mental health, is that Lane County suffers from street level help. My son could not get anywhere other than going to the hospital and discharged in the middle of the night at 2:30 to go nowhere. These 2 facilities would allow people that are struggling in that no man's land zone to at least have a place to go so that they don't commit suicide like my son did. This program alone, I figure, in the first year would save 25 lives, and I think we should do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any questions? Commissioner Buck.
Thank you, Chair. So I am not opposed to the concept. The issue I have is that normally programs like this are vetted in advance of them bringing up to the Board of Commissioners to review and approve. And that generally happens through Health and Human Services. And I don't know who's this money's going to. I don't know how it's going to be utilized. I don't know who's running the program. I just don't have any backup data. And I would suggest that this rather be pulled forward as a work session item for the Board of County Commissioners so that we can actually vet whatever the project concept turns out to be. Because I also don't know who, like, if we build it, do they have operating money? I just don't know anything about the program. And so I think it's just too early for this particular board. And I hope that you would consider bringing it forward at a regular meeting.
Thanks,
Can I
Commissioner.
respond to that?
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner, for the comment. May I respond that these 2 parties that we're thinking of have done public meeting appearances at our Board of County Commissioners meetings. They've had meetings with our Director of Public Health and Services, and they are already vetted organizations doing with this work already. The advice that I got to put this forward was the money could be laid aside or put there to use, and if the money did not get put to use by the reasons maybe you're describing, like maybe we decide that it's not the right time or something, that it would then be out of the process back into the general fund. The reason that I think it's so important to set this money aside now is because obviously it's July. It's July time. It's time. And for us to put this off only means that more people die. And I'm just one of those people that I don't feel that I want that blood on my hands. So that's the reason I think we should put it aside now, work the details out, and if it comes down to the way that we don't decide it's appropriate, then we can put it aside.
Commissioner Buck, then Commissioner Farr.
Thank you.
We do have Eve Gray in the audience to talk to. I don't even know if there's a more appropriate bucket of money to utilize rather than the general fund. And I personally would love to hear from our Director Gray about it, but that's the preference of the chair.
It certainly was a question of mine. Excuse me, Commissioner Farr, for jumping in. It was a question of mine as I was reading this. Is there actually dedicated funding available within the H&H's budget that doesn't have to come from general fund that might, that could potentially satisfy this? So that was my question, but I do want to acknowledge Commissioner Farr was in the queue.
I would look
Great.
at Director Gray.
So Director Gray, thank you.
In response to the question around alternative funding sources, these particular programs, and I only found out about them this morning, so I have not had a lot of time to vet and understand well what is being requested. My understanding is that these are peer-led facilities. We don't have any behavioral health dollars that would be supportive of a peer-run only facility, particularly for stabilization services. We have a 23-hour crisis and stabilization center in our community. It's fairly low level, however, and is unable to appropriately decant the emergency department and the jail. So the move toward our stabilization center is much higher level and requires physicians and nurses and qualified mental health providers. Now, a peer-led facility is not necessary. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I don't think it's a replacement for the stabilization center, and I don't think it's a pilot for the stabilization center, but it may very well be a wonderful project, may have success. We have a new peer-led organization that was recently opened here in Eugene. It is only open for the daytime hours, so if we need that 24-hour support, we haven't had the time to do a real community assessment to identify what needs this would serve in addition to the nonprofits who are already providing some similar services in the community. I don't anticipate it would be, though, that stabilization center that we have been anticipating. So again, very broad brush and without the ability to do detailed review, but that's my initial comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Farr, did you want to?
Great. Thank you, Director Gray. I'm hugely enthusiastic about peer support services. Oregon has one of the greatest numbers of peer supports in the nation, but unfortunately, nobody has big numbers of peers who are actively being trained and performing on the job. I'm excited about the future of it, and we're putting a great deal of resource into that right now, into training peers, and once peers are trained, helping them to really dig deep into, as we all have witnessed, to provide a level of service that even QHMPs are not able to provide. People who have with lived experience know what the people who are experiencing are going through. I'm hugely enthusiastic about that. And I'm enthusiastic about this sort of a facility. But I have a couple of quick questions specifically about your request, Commissioner Lovall. You're pretty specific about two facilities. Is it two existent current facilities, or is it two that targets of opportunity down the road?
Yeah, thank you. There's two pieces of property that are on the foreclosed list now that we're looking at that would, we think, qualify in a neighborhood, in an environment that would work.
And this $200,000, would that be solely for the procurement of those, of the title to those facilities?
Well, the Lane County already owns title because they're foreclosed. My ask for these numbers are to bring the houses to, like, if we need to build an ADA ramp or to, bring them up to a standard to where they are usable for the situation that we're asking, but then to take that same piece of property and then put them back on the tax roll, charging the people who are using that the rent basically of the tax roll, so that property that we're missing. So the 200,000, I'm not saying we're going to use all of that, but it was just a number that was enough in my mind to get what needs to be done in a particular location. We may not use all of it.
So this is a multi-stage project that involves Lane County continuing ownership of the property, the foreclosed properties, and ultimately turning it over deed to a nonprofit who's okay. I'm once again very enthusiastic. I think there's a huge future in this. I have a few questions regarding what it would take to actually get the engine started on this beyond $200,000. I have some more questions about that. Let's have a little bit more of a discussion. But I am Director Gray. Thank you for your comments. I think we have a future with a facility such as this. I think is something that really should be considered. So thank you.
Commissioner Trieger.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for bringing this forward, Commissioner. I want to be really clear. I am fully in support of exploring this model. But the process of the Budget Committee versus all the work that goes into the exploration, and Commissioner Buck used the word vetting, not just of the organizations, but of the model and developing a budget is, I think we would get a better result and more information to do that at a work session at the board level. And I want to make really clear, I understand your sense of urgency around its budget time and the fiscal year starts July 1, but we do have quarterly opportunities with our supplementals where if the general fund reserves is the right place, should this program move forward and we get a clearer costing, and that's the only place we could pull the money, we have other opportunities outside of the July 1. We have quarterly opportunities to do that, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? And then the other piece I want to offer, because I looked at this and thought about lessons learned from
Still there?
prior to your joining the board when we had the influx of ARPA dollars, and the board made a decision to set a generous fund aside and create a community grants program. And the response that we got obviously way outstripped the need. We had way more requests dollar-wise than we could fill, but we put them through a really good and important process to identify where to invest those dollars. And so I just feel like process-wise, if we do this for general fund reserves at this time, we're very much out of alignment with what we do, and we're sending a message to the community that's very different than what we usually do about how they can come to us and work with us in partnership. And finally, to the point somebody made, often there are other dollars available. In fact, there are other dollars available for projects like this, capital improvements, operational dollars, to again preserve those really rare and limited general fund. So I am fully supportive of exploring this concept and excited about it, but not supportive of an allocation out of general fund reserves as of tonight.
Holly.
Thank you, Commissioner, for sharing your story. And I think I agree, this is a very compelling idea and concept. And in reading through this, it's hard to make a decision about a funding, programmatic funding in a paragraph, and hard to articulate all of those details. And I would be interested in how do we set this program up for success and sustainability and making sure that it has the intended impact. And so looking at the use of evidence-based programs and just the opportunity to really have a robust plan, programmatic plan behind this, I would be really interested in and think that that could help strengthen the program for moving forward.
Mr. Pryor, thank you.
Thank you. I'm getting a sense from listening to the others that there's a lot of support for the concept because it's a great concept and something I am 100% supportive of. But and the only but is I've been here before. In fact, I can remember conversations I've had with the county administrator around putting together facilities and finding the money to put together facilities. And the piece of the conversation that always becomes the stumbling block is you have the money, it's one-time money, you get the facility built, where does the money come to operate it year after year after year, the ongoing money? And that has been a stumbling block on a number of conversations that we've had. I can get $1 million to build something, but it's going to take X amount of dollars to run it every year. And where will that money come from? Because you're not just making a commitment for 2023, you're making a commitment for 24, 25, 20, and on into the future. And so I like the idea. I think it is absolutely worthy of a more detailed discussion, including if you were to create this facility, what would be the source of ongoing money to pay the ongoing operational costs? Even if it's a peer program, which I think is great, there is going to be operational costs. And so I would want to have those nailed down for no other reason than just I've been here before, and I know that's always the thing that trips you up is I'll get it built, but I don't know how to run it. And so I would just make sure that there's a better conversation around it at that point.
Commissioner Farr.
Mine is more of a a technical question. We own these properties; they're in our own ownership since we foreclosed. If this does not receive support tonight, what's the process for keeping those properties in abeyance while the balance of the conversation goes forward? Is there anybody in the room who can answer that?
I can answer that, Chair. I can-
Just to not sell them at this point in time.
We have Lauren Blythe in the audience who could provide some information.
Thank you, Commissioner Lovell. I'll listen to let's give Lauren a shot at this. He's been around the block.
Well, I'm not sure quite been around the block enough to be very specific about that, but Commissioner, my understanding is in the process to dispose of or find a disposition for our foreclosed properties, we have discretion over when that occurs, how long or what other considerations there are. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Very good. So should this be stalled tonight for whatever reason, the properties we don't lose the opportunity with these two properties that Commissioner Lovell has seen identified as a part of the discussion.
That's correct.
Commissioner Lovell, I'm done. Did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I just have a couple more things to add. I think, Mr. Pryor, your purview is right on. This is not a one-time thing hoping this will finance itself in the future. These programs are already self-sustaining. They have a self-sustaining model. This is only to get a piece of property that we already own up to the standard that an already working model can continue on. In my mind as a developer, I have to think about the worst-case scenario all the time. If I'm going to invest money in a property, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is I sell the property. The second consideration is, am I going to make money at it or am I going to lose my shorts on it? Lane County, if they put the money into these properties and we sell them in a year or a year and a half, Lane County still makes money. To me, it's a win-win situation. So it's not a risk to the budget. It's not a risk to the citizens. It's not frivolously spending their money. It's putting something in place sooner than we can, and Mr. Pryor said this as well. We can't build something we can't sustain. The Stabilization Center has a model. We can build the building, we can't sustain it. We already know that, and this is still 5 years out. I'm trying to move the needle in our community now before more people die, and I think this is something worth considering.
Are there any other comments from the committee?
I hate to take a third round on this, but a question on that then. In clarity, what you're suggesting is that we take properties that are in some form of disrepair, we would presume, and bring them up to a standard and then let them sit there until a model for operating them is developed by a nonprofit or a separate private agency.
Well, certainly that's one way of looking at it, Commissioner Farr, but I think, we have two people in place that are ready to do this, and if they need more vetting, then let's bring them on board. We can hold these properties, as Lauren said, for as long as we want, because that's our purview as the county. But I think if we have some commitment going forward to the urgency of this matter, I'm willing to table this, but I'm not willing to table the urgency of this matter. We cannot, as a county, afford 5 or 6 years to build a stabilization center and look those families in the eyes and tell them we didn't do what we could do in the interim to help people.
Okay. Are we ready for a vote? Okay, I will, let's see. Call for the vote. We need at least 6 individuals in favor to move this along. So all those in, sorry,
I think you would want a motion.
I do need a motion. I'm calling for a motion. Do I have a motion? I see Commissioner Farr.
I move support for item number 1 on the Budget Committee deliberation info checklist for $200,000 from reserves to be used to improve properties.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Seneca on the line.
He's live up here now.
Do we have a vote from Commissioner Seneca? I want to make sure we're giving him opportunity. Was he a positive? Okay, so how many? I need to count. Yeah, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So this one will not move on. Thank you for the discussion. So we'll move on to item number 2, which is pertaining to the AOCC dues. And this was also Commissioner Lovell. Would you like to speak to the item?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is the Association of Oregon and California Counties. Lane County is the third largest producer in the series of 13 counties of the OACC of timber receipts and revenues. This is an organization that fights and litigates and holds the government accountable for us to harvest on our federal timberlands. Lane County has been in this association for a number of years and just recently had voted itself out to change its model to a climate model. But I want to also iterate on this particular thing here is that Lane County is 90% timberland in our county. We're not a corn producer. We grow 2x4s, and this is what we do. And I think this organization, the AOCC, is fighting for our county to do what it does best and to steward the gifts that we have in our county and to bring those necessary dollars into our general fund so that we can fund things that we seem necessary or deem necessary for our citizens. That's public safety, that's roads, and that's any other discretionary funds that we have. Part of this ask is not only the association dues, which has been part of the budget for a long time, but also our share of the litigation that was ongoing to get us to the point where we are now, which is at the Court of Appeals. So I'm asking for those to be brought up to speed so that we come into the organization with a clean slate and a full participation with the other 13 counties that are joining us in trying to harvest our timber.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have any comments? Mr. Buck.
Thank you, Chair. Part of this ask comes up every single year, of course, so I think we've had a lot of practice. And for those that are new, there's two pieces to this, really, right? The first piece is about putting funds into this AOCC association. And the other part is regarding litigation, and I'll speak to them separately. The first part, I have each year expressed my concern over transparency of this particular association, specifically because I can't go online, I can't find when they meet, where they meet, what their minutes are, what they talk about, or what they do. And for me, when you're using public taxpayer-funded money, I have a minimum threshold of transparency that must be met. And I don't find that this association is meeting that minimum transparency threshold. And that's why I remain opposed to this particular portion of this ask. Regarding the second portion of this ask, well, actually, before I go there, I also want to add that whether we do or do not go back into this association, it's really a policy level discussion. It's very contentious in our community, and it's not appropriate really for a budget committee with citizen members to have to delve into a deep, contentious policy issue that should be held at a regular Board of Commissioners meeting. The second portion of the ask regarding litigation is, I actually don't know what RMP appeal is. I know nothing about this litigation. And it's also inappropriate to ask citizen members to weigh in on litigation that Board of Commissioners haven't even been briefed on in executive session with her county council. Those kind of decisions regarding what lawsuits we do or do not enter should be at the board level. Citizen members in a budget committee should not be making decisions about lawsuits on behalf of the county. It's inappropriate. And that's the reason I'll be voting no also on the second portion. If that's something that the board wants to talk about later on, we should do so appropriately with council's input. I'll leave it there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So as a citizen member and as being on this committee for a number of years now, I do recall having previous discussions about this, and I agree there is a distinction between coming forward with funds to be used for an effort separately from the Board of Commissioners deciding policy and deciding how to move forward. And I've actually heard this argued the other way around, actually where we pulled funding away from it before the commission had decided to not participate in this particular group. I look at Lane County and the work that's been done over the years with the drop in support coming in from federal lands in one format or another, whether it be timber harvest or whether it be secure rural schools or a number of other things that come in to support public safety, the road department, schools, and I see a huge disconnect with basically, in the way, one way to put it is that these federal lands aren't actually carrying their weight. And I'm not specific about how they do that function, but they need to do that function. And this is a bit of a historic model for how it's been done over the years about getting Lane County's voice forward in this process. And with the fact that this is input on policy, I guess, to some extent, but this is a citizen speaking and giving information to the board so it can make its own decisions, is that if you're not going to do it this way, you have to do it a different way. You have to perform the functions in order to serve your citizens, in order to make sure that they're getting the revenue out of federal lands, to put it one way, in one format or another, in order to support all these functions. We spent a lot of time hearing from Lane County staff about the budgets, the revenue and the expenses, and I commend the staff on beating down the expenses to the rock bottom. That goes across the board, from Health and Human Services to Public Works to the Sheriff's Department. Everybody has squeezed that thing down as far as it is. What I see the problem is we have a revenue problem.
Right.
We don't have revenue coming in from a source that we historically did. And if there's a pathway to get that revenue back, I think it's important for this committee to fund those opportunities, knowing that you need to go ahead and handle policy in its appropriate frame and so forth. But at $117,191, I really would consider that to be an investment and an opportunity. At least give the Board of Commissioners the opportunity to take $117,191 and decide how it can best leverage that and parlay that into some type of action. So that's my feelings on it.
Do we have any other comments?
I'd like to make another comment, Chair. Go ahead, Pat.
Thank you. Ms. Borkowski and Ms. Moody, if this passes, if we allocate either 70,061 or the entire amount, this doesn't put us back in the association. This just puts the money in place for the Board of County Commissioners to have a discussion with this money as to whether or not we rejoin the AOCC. Is that correct?
Commissioner Farr, I think, yes, if that was part of the motion,
Yeah.
then correct, yeah.
So this is just the money. This is not joining the association. It's putting the money in place to make that, for the board to make that decision, which is in fact a policy decision. And Commissioner Buck is right. It's been year after year that we've had this, I think for 2 years now, year after year, we've had this discussion. And it's come out with the same result on the Board of County Commissioners each time, that we've made the decision to not spend the money. This just puts the money in place so we can then make the decision whether or not we want to spend that money, or if the Board of County Commissioners as a majority says, no, then the money would not be spent and would return to the general fund or back into the budget system. Okay, well, it seems like a really safe proposal to me that we allocate the money and then let the Board of County Commissioners have that policy discussion with as many people sitting in that audience using that mic as need to do so before we make that final decision. Yeah, so I'm in.
Commissioner Traeger.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me, I'm assuming I know the answer because of the previous item, but I'm going to ask again. If we have the policy discussion first, if a board member makes an assignment to bring that to us as an item, and we make the policy decision to re-enter as members of an association after exploring that and all its implications and the operations of that association, then again, we can still find a way to pay those dues, and if the best way is out of general fund reserves, we can do that through a supplemental. Is that right?
Yes, you can make adjustments in the supplemental, correct.
Thank you.
I have a question. I'm going to put myself in the queue before I go back to second round. So the litigation piece of this is where I have the majority of my questions and perhaps concern. I don't understand, I'm not familiar with the litigation, the current litigation. So is, Commissioner Lovell, that maybe this is a question for you. Is that $47,000 that's in this, that is the money that would be required to pay our quote-unquote portion of the litigation?
No, it's not required. The required money to get us back into the organization is $70,061.20. This $47,130 is to pay our share of where the litigation has taken the AOCC to date, which to me, I mean, forgive me for my crassness here, but isn't this a budget where we try to figure out if we have enough money to do the things we want to do in the future? I understand the process is maybe we can do an amendment later, but forgive me, that's not the way I've run my budgets. I look at my budget and say, do I have enough money to do what I'm thinking to do? If I want to do that, maybe I should set it aside. And if I don't do that later, then that set aside money can then go somewhere else. That is why I'm requesting the things I'm requesting in the way I'm requesting. I'm not trying to jump policy. What I'm trying to do is to get us back into the discussion with available funds so we can make the right decision. The AOCC has been operating since 1925 as a transparent organization with board members that send minutes to their board members which are required or supposed to be required to report back to the public. Now, I understand Commissioner Buck wants everything put on a website, but sometimes that doesn't happen unless, you know, people build a website. This is not a publicly screened organization. It's a private organization that works with board commissioners of each county of the AOCC and gives them minutes. In turn, they are responsible to inform their constituents. So I'm not seeing that there's a transparency problem here at all.
No, that wasn't my question, though.
It's all right. I need to make a comment on the rest of the comments that have been made.
Okay, I have my concern, I don't understand the litigation behind it, and so that's what's causing me pause. I come from an economic development background, and I understand how important timber is to this county.
And I understand, too, how our portion of what other people's have been fighting our battles for. We're number 3 in the timber production business in the state. We have the richest timber county in the entire nation, and we're not pulling our weight. This is, for me, to get us back into good standing with people that have been fighting for our rights, and we haven't been at the table. This is $47,000 of what's already been spent of other counties helping to pull our weight, and we still get the benefit from it. We should get ourselves back to the table with a clean slate. That's what this is about for me.
Are there any other comments, questions? Seeing none? Okay. I will entertain a motion. Commissioner Farr.
Thank you, Chair Means. I move item 2 on the known issues for discussion list for passage.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Discussion of the motion.
Sure.
Great, thank you. This is not a formal motion the way we do them in board meetings, but I want to point out that a part of the content in this number 2 at the end says add membership dues to operating budget in future years. So this may be a question for our administrator and or for our budget director. if we move this forward, I understand the intention Commissioner Lovall has is to set money aside, and then we still need to have the policy conversation at the board. But to what extent is the motion binding, if you will, the way it is when we have motions at board meetings, that includes this sentence, add membership dues to operating budget in future years? That's obligating future boards to something, and we really can't do that, right?
I'm not sure I would agree with the last part of what you're saying, that you can't, because funding for this association was included previously, and then was continued. We haven't included it in recent proposed budgets because the board budget, and I don't recall if it was the budget committee or the board, or both, that removed that funding, so we didn't include it. So on the latter part of what you said, I'm not sure I agree with that. In terms of the language as it is here, adding membership dues, yes, I would interpret that, and if the board approved this, then I would take that as the direction to include funding for the association in future years.
So we're really sort of voting on three things. We're voting on association fees being set aside, we're voting on dollars being set aside to participate in litigation we know nothing about, and we're voting to add the membership dues to future year budgets in one go.
Commissioner Farr, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly what we're doing. But what we're voting for is offering a choice to subsequent decision makers. So the first choice is, if the money is set aside, the Board of County Commissioners will decide whether or not to spend the money. That's the choice. So we're offering a choice. The second choice is whether or not the Budget Committee, should it get included in next year's budget, does the Budget Committee approve it in next year's budget? So we're offering them a choice. We're not making decisions. We're offering future choices to deliberating bodies. And I think I don't see any problem with that at all. I think that's transparency, and that allows for as much debate at that mic right there as needs to occur.
Any other comments to the motion? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. And can somebody let me know Commissioner Senega's vote? So we have 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Fails.
Fails. Okay. Thank you. Okay, item number 3 is Commissioner Senega's River Road Community Organization budget request. Do we have Commissioner Senega on the line?
He is live, I think, still.
Live, but we continue to have some technical difficulties. So Jason can hear him, but we cannot. I don't know if he wants to call in again, or can we make sure that the computer is unmuted? That is.
Yeah. Jason, can you, are you able to communicate with him? I'm just curious if he wants to speak to the item.
Or if you can see him as a participant and make sure he doesn't show that he's self-muted.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Farr.
Thank you. I'm fairly well versed in this. This used to be my district, and in the last couple of budget cycles, I've asked for this funding. In the past, it's been a little bit less than this we've asked for. What this does, it supplements the City of Eugene pays for mailings to addresses inside the city limits. Both of these community organizations are about 50-50 inside and outside of the city limits, actually a little bit more outside the city limits than inside the city limits. What this does is supplement the mailings so that all neighborhoods, all addresses in the district gets the mailings for the neighborhood the neighborhood mailings, not just for the meetings, but the other mailings. These are two very active neighborhoods, and they have appreciated our unanimous support on the Budget Committee in the past. And each time, and I anticipate this time again, the men sitting to my right will say we should put this in the budget and not have to vote on it again. But that being said, we get a great deal of punch out of this, and it just supplements what the City of Eugene is doing, and makes the entire neighborhood is canvassed.
Great. Any questions or comments? Yes.
The man to his right. Actually, I'm in favor of the process. I'm just, the funding mechanism seems a little clunky, and Commissioner Farr and I had this discussion. I know he's worked on it and so forth. This kind of falls underneath one of those things we talk about as far as kind of an unfunded requirement that's being placed on a small segment of the population. I would say in the future, I'd like to see it, if it's something that the county feels is an important function, the board feels it's an important function, that maybe it finds a home in the budget, if that's what the intention is. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? That was actually my comment. Is there an opportunity to actually build this into a budget instead of bringing it up year after year? I think that would be an interesting, eloquent solution moving
I see
forward.
notes being taken.
All right, I will entertain a motion. Commissioner Trieger.
Chair, I'll move that we approve the $15,947 request for River Road Community Organization and Santa Clara Community Organizations to fund them, to enable them to provide more information to county households outside of city limits out of the general fund reserves.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Chris Pryor, second. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And I'm going to make an assumption that Commissioner Seneca is a yes. Okay, great. Wonderful, thank you.
Chair Means, if I may, you all just saved me, I think, $7,000, which is what I put in out of my personal fund last year to pass this. So good job.
Hey.
Well
Happy
done,
to-
Ryan. You
happy to
beat me
help.
to the punch on that one.
All right, moving on to our last item here for discussion, Commissioner Farr.
Thank you. This is the Consumer Council is a group of, as it states here, a group of existent or former behavioral health patients who get together on a monthly basis and talk about policy recommendations that are forwarded to OHA through different channels and by different means. It's an opportunity for people who have actually lived the experience to, in their words, be a part of any action about them that is not without them. I didn't get that quite right, but that's about what they say. And I agree with it. I've sat in on the meetings a couple of times, and it really is an interesting discussion that occurs among this group of patients and group of individuals. And I'm really excited about the fact that not only by putting this in the budget today, I could have paid for this entirely out of my office fund, but I wanted a commitment on this budget committee's part that this is not the first time we'll look at this council for advice, but this is actually a formality that this is a council that we're going to look at their advice and listen to what they have to say.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments? Commissioner Trieger.
Thank you. I'm fully supportive of this. I just have a question. There's a line in the description, Commissioner Farr, that says their attendance has diminished since support was removed. From where were they getting the support previously, and who removed it?
I was hoping to be able to give a full answer to that. What has been suggested is that the county was providing some clerical support for invitations in the past. I'm not sure exactly, and I apologize for that, I'm not sure exactly where that came from, nor am I sure exactly who would be providing that support. Whether it might be me in my office, I don't know. But just to make sure that the person who's the chair isn't the one who's actually sending out the invitations.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all right, I'll ask for a motion.
Oh, I think I made the motion. Oh, no, I didn't. Sorry.
No.
I will. That was the previous one. Look alive. I'll move approval of the request for $1,965 from general fund reserves, combined with $1,965 in existing expenditure authority, basically Commissioner Farr's discretionary budget, totaling $3,930 for the, so I'm going to start that over. I move approval of the request of $1,965 from general fund reserve for the Lane Consumer Council.
Great. Do we have a second? I'll second. We have a second. All right, all those in...
Discussion of that motion?
Sure, yes.
My question is this, is why are we not just approving the 3930? And just make a new motion?
I can, but if it's coming from Commissioner Farr's discretionary budget, then it's at his discretion. He's doing it. It's not a budget committee action.
I have personal reasons for that, which I could go into a little bit, but I want to personally have personal support for that organization as well.
I mean, it's not like we're buying a piece of the moon here. I was just kind of wondering,
Right.
so yeah, thank you.
It's really for
I understand.
Yeah.
Thank
my own
you.
communication.
The request is the 1965. So,
Got it.
motion for.
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. And Commissioner Seneca is good, unanimous. Great, thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, technical adjustments. Oh, sorry, yes.
And my apologies, and I am more than happy to bring this back at the board level, but is there any possibility of doing one other ask without having proposed it previously? And I can give a very brief description, and if there's more question and conversation than we want to make time for tonight, I'm happy to just make it a board assignment and do it through a supplemental. But is that procedurally, is that okay to bring
This
one
is
other?
totally committee choice. Yeah.
It's my call. Okay,
So the very brief.
let's hear it.
Thank you. And the brief back, and it's just, I just got an email from a staff person who had been working with us on this issue an hour ago and didn't see it till now. So the board heard a couple months back a request from our municipal judge over in Florence, a request for some financial support to the tune of about $3,000 because there is administrative cost to them processing payments on fines and citations in that court. And it saves that community and the nearby communities a lot to not have to drive in to Eugene area to have that court in Florence. And the judge there is really, does a great job accommodating folks. Some folks rack up multiple citations, the dollar tag gets really high, and he allows them to do a payment plan. But because of their outdated system, which they need even more money to fix that, it's a very clunky system, so there's an administrative and staffing cost each time to process a payment. And he came to the board asking if we would allow him to tack a fee on to cover that cost. And as a board, we agreed that essentially amounted to a poverty tax, that we were asking people who could least afford to pay their citations to pay extra because they couldn't afford to pay their citations all at once. And I talked about that maybe we could address it through the budget process. And my understanding is the funding comes out of general fund already for the operation of this court, is that right?
That
So-
is correct. The court is.
So is this a good and right opportunity, asking staff, and if so, then if this group is willing, we could have a brief conversation, see if we can move it forward, and if not, I can bring it up again with the board. But to ask for a general fund reserve allocation for this year of $3,000 to support covering the administrative cost of providing payment plans on fees for folks out of the Florence Municipal Court.
So I think we can have that conversation, that we're,
What we were trying to determine is whether or not that request was built into the proposed budget, and so it's already resolved, or not.
Well, that's what I thought when we had discussed, but then Jeff just sent me a message at 5 today asking if the judge and I could find a time to chat with him about this issue. So maybe the judge just isn't aware because we haven't adopted this budget yet. I guess that's the question. If it's in there, then it's in there and we're good.
Yeah, we don't know. We're trying to get a hold of staff, but the last minute request, yeah. So what we're not sure of is whether, if you're saying it was a cost to the justice courts and they've submitted a budget that keeps the same service level, whether they have built it into their budget is what we're trying to determine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I would suggest that, given the fact that we can't really give you a solid answer on where that's at, we need to do a little bit more work.
That's fine.
And,
I'm willing to put that on hold and do it through a board process rather than a budget committee process in our first supplemental.
Yeah, and even just to maybe remind the committee too, the Board of Commissioners can and they do make some changes to the approved budget at the request of departments that have got new information since they built their budget. So you will have an opportunity here even in the next couple of weeks for something like
Great,
this.
so maybe before June 6th we can do it. Okay, terrific. Thank you very much for that.
thank you.
That takes care of that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, technical adjustments. It looks like we do have a technical adjustment here. Do you want to speak to that, or?
I can just remind the committee, and then we do have Health and Human Services here. So there's the addition request that is related to the one-time funding for the governor's executive order. You did receive a memo from Health and Human Services. They are here if you had any questions, but this is a budget action that would increase the revenue and the expenditure. These are agency payments that are paid out to others from the county by the $5,207,499, and no FTE associated with that.
Great. So I'd entertain a motion. Commissioner Buck?
I'll move approval of our technical adjustment for H&HS of $5,207,499 in revenue expenses as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, great. Herb. Okay, any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, so I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Do we have a vote from Ryan? Yes, great. Unanimous. Wonderful, thank you.
It's like talking to Gemini.
Okay. So I think that's gotten us to discussion of overall Lane County budget, roundtable discussion, and comments from the committee. Do we have anybody wanting to speak to the overall budget? Yes.
I stated this earlier in a different format, but I wanted to speak to it in the overall perspective of the budget. I'm very impressed with the work that the county has done in controlling expenses, optimizing expenses, getting more out of what was available. Very commendable. I still believe we have a significant revenue problem, and there are obviously different pathways to take on that, and I guess I encourage the county to take all of them in those opportunities that are available. I mentioned earlier my feeling that I don't think that looking back at history, and even when I started on the budget committee, we had a substantial amount of federal funds that have no longer existed, and that almost feels like it's been normalized, and I don't agree with it. I don't agree with the fact that we've all accepted it when it's really not good, it's not equitable, it's not good to cheat our residents out of that revenue stream that should be able to support our services across the board. So that's my statement on the budget.
Thank you. Commissioner Farr?
Thank you. You know, Ms. Moker-Heisky and Ms. Moody, I witnessed from a distance how much work went into this. And as I come in fairly early myself, you're already here working on it. When I go home sometimes fairly late myself, you're still here working on it. To get us to the point we're at right now, it wasn't an easy process. You made it look easy. You know, you made it for us seem like a really almost lighthearted process that we went through, and I know it wasn't such. You know, it was difficult getting to this point. We made cuts, especially in Health and Human Services, where tremendous cuts were made to get us to the point where we're presenting this budget. And it's adequate. It does the job. It gets us through this year. We've added a couple of things. We've added a couple of positions in the DA's office, for instance, that met some of our needs. But we know it's not enough. You know, we know that we're just, while it's a far cry from where we were 8 years ago, where we didn't have a structurally balanced budget. We do have a structurally balanced budget using reserve funds. But, you know, for the future, what do we do? Can we look at Deschutes County, for instance, and see how they have a separate budget for public safety, or a separate levy for separate tax base for public safety? And what can we do to make it so that we don't have to worry about patrol officers and DAs and mental health services and the other things that we really do know we're doing to a certain level, doing as well as we can with the resources we have? How do we get more resources? You know, that's a part of the discussion from this moment forward. 2 nights ago, we had a wonderful victory. Almost 80% of the people who voted said yes to the continuation of the sheriff's levy, yes to public safety in Lane County. I think people are ready for it. I think people are ready for a yes for public safety in Lane County. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Farr. Commissioner Lovell?
Thank you. Yeah, I echo all those statements about your superior handleship of the budget. This is the first one I've walked through. Obviously, you know, as an entrepreneur, when I look at my checkbook, it's about, you know, a billionth as thick as this book. So good on you for getting all those details down. I agree with what Herb said as well, too, about revenue. We are in a position to where we need to either, A, press the powers that be that are restricting our revenue, that being the federal government and the forest industries and those kinds of things that are binding us up. And we also need to make aware of our taxpayers that it's time for us to maybe pay more so we get what we expect. I think more often the calls and the emails that I get are people expecting the government to do more, but yet they are willing to pay more. The term affordable housing is one that comes to mind. Housing costs $325 a square foot. I don't care where you build. That's what I'm experiencing as a developer. So we don't have affordable housing. We have what housing costs. The question is how much of our citizens are willing to subsidize to make it equitable for someone who can afford it. And so that's really where we're at. We're at a point where all of us have to look ourselves in the mirror and say, what are we willing to pay for what we're willing to expect? And so, if I live in the county and someone breaks my windows and steals the stereo in my car, I expect the sheriffs to show up. Well, they don't do that now because we only have 2 sheriffs patrolling the entire county. A couple years ago, we had a person who was sleeping in Pleasant Hill, and a drug addict who was released came from outside, broke in and shot his wife and almost killed his baby and shot him in the head, and he survived. Those are the people I think about when I think about public safety, and I think about all of us in the county are going to have to look ourselves in the mirror now that we're 80% behind public safety and say, what are we willing to pay? What are we willing to do to find revenue to live in the community we want to live in? And so I'm with Herb and I'm with Commissioner Farr on we need to find ways to really get ourselves back into the position. I think of my 92-year-old mother-in-law, too. I don't want her paying more taxes, but I'm willing to pay some for her if she's safe. So we have some reality checks to make.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, Chris.
I agree with the whole revenue conversation. I think it's really important. Are we a participant in the United Front?
Yes.
Have been for a number of years. When the priorities are set for United Front, I think it would be really good for the county to lobby more robustly to have the revenue conversation at the Washington, D.C. level. We go there and we lobby our representatives and we try to get legislation moving forward. I think United Front's been a great thing. It's brought home some bacon on a number of occasions. I think we should have a really serious revenue conversation at the United Front level because it's something we can do immediately. We're already a member, we're already a participant. I think we should incorporate that into our United Front effort.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. So we're moving on to a slate of motions, it appears. So we have them on the screen.
Yes, one at a time, she'll bring them up, yes.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Chair. I move approval of the FY 2023-2024 Lane County permanent tax rate of $1.2793 per $100,000 of assessed value.
Do we have a second? Oh, per 1,000 of
Or
assessed.
$1,000 of assessed value, thank you.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Buck seconds. Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Unanimous, great. Motion number 2, do we have someone who's willing to make this motion?
I can do it, I think, if I can read that far. Okay. I move approval of the fiscal year 2023-24 local option tax to maintain jail and youth treatment beds in the amount of 55 cents per $1,000 assessed value, with 50 cents for jail services and 5 cents for youth services.
Thank you.
Second that.
Thank you. I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Wonderful. Unanimous? Motion number 3, do we have someone willing to make that motion?
I'll make that motion. I move to approval of the fiscal year 2023-2024 local option tax to support 4-H and OSU extension programs in Lane County in the amount of .028 per 1,000 assessed value.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Unanimous. Motion number 4. Do we have somebody willing to make this motion? Commissioner Traeger.
I move approval of the fiscal year 23-24 local option tax to fund Lane County Parks in the amount of 16 cents per $1,000 of assessed value.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Wonderful, unanimous. Motion number 5. Do we have a motion, please?
I can do it again, I think. Move approval to allow the use of transient room tax dollars for operational purposes consistent with Lane Code 4.005-175D.E and F and ORS 320.350 as follows. Lane Event Center, $1,220,321. Lane County Parks Division, $754,660.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Wonderful. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Unanimous. Thank you. Motion 6. We have a motion, please. Chris Pryor, please.
Move approval of the entire fiscal year 2023-2024 budget with all adjustments approved by the Budget Committee.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Great. A motion and a second. Discussion, please. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I just, as I do most years, want to make sure that I declare inside of our budget, there is funding for St. Vincent de Paul of Lane County. And I need to declare a potential conflict of interest because I am related to the executive director of St. Vincent de Paul. However, I recuse myself from each and every one of those votes when it comes individually to the Board of County Commissioners and does not impact my ability to vote for the overall budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Wonderful. All those in favor, please say or raise your hand. Yeah. Unanimous. Thank you. We did it. All right. I feel like that deserves an applause. Thank you. Yes. All right. I think we are at the end of our agenda. I just want to reiterate my thanks, my personal thanks to all of you, all of the department directors in the room, all of the staff that have put countless hours into this, all of the committee members who have also put hours of work into this. Thank you all for your time and your energy and your service to Lane County. We are adjourned.